The morning sun spread gold across the small frontier town of Willow Creek, brushing light over the one-room schoolhouse that sat quietly beside the river. Miss Clara Dawson stood by the doorway, her soft hands trembling slightly as she adjusted the thin wire spectacles on her nose. She was only 23, newly arrived from the East, and painfully shy. Her voice, though gentle, often trembled when spoken aloud, so she used her hands more than her lips. It was her comfort, her language of silence. She had been born partially mute, learning to speak through sign and whispers, which made most townsfolk think her odd. But to her, words were not always needed to be understood. That morning, a small wagon stopped outside the schoolyard. A little girl stepped down, maybe 6 years old, in a neat blue dress and polished boots, her blonde hair tied with a white ribbon. She held a small slate board close to her chest. Clara's heart softened as soon as she saw her, such innocence in those curious eyes. The child turned and signed, "Thank you, Papa." The man holding the reins, a tall, broad-shouldered rancher, gave a short nod before tipping his hat to the teacher. "Good morning, ma'am," he said, his voice steady, deep as the earth. "I'm Luke Barrett. My daughter, Emma, will be attending your school from today." Clara blinked, her heart tripping inside her chest. She nodded politely, forming slow signs with her hands as she whispered, "She's welcome, very welcome." Emma's eyes brightened as she recognized the movement, quickly signing back with excitement. Clara's own face bloomed with a smile. Few people knew sign language in this part of the West. To meet a little girl who understood, it felt like fate. Luke noticed it too. The way his daughter's eyes lit up for the first time in months, it stirred something deep within him. Since his wife had passed 2 years ago, Emma had barely smiled. She had been deaf since birth, and though Luke had tried learning her silent language, ranch life and grief had made it difficult. Watching the new teacher's gentle hands move in graceful shapes, seeing Emma's face burst into joy, it was as if the heavy silence around them both began to lift. Day after day, Clara taught Emma with patient kindness. She used gestures, chalk, and laughter. She never scolded or shouted, only smiled and wrote, guiding the girl's small hands as they learned to form letters. Emma adored her instantly. And each afternoon, when Luke came to fetch his daughter, he would find the teacher kneeling beside her student, the two of them silently giggling over a drawing or a story. Luke began to linger. At first, he told himself it was for Emma, to understand her lessons, to thank the teacher. But soon, he found himself drawn to the soft light in Clara's eyes, the quiet strength behind her shy manner. She never sought attention. She never boasted or gossiped like the town ladies. Her humility was rare, her voice, when it came, was almost musical, like a whisper carried by the wind. He found himself listening harder just to catch every word she spoke. But Clara noticed too, how the tall rancher would stand by the door, his hat in his hands, his eyes softer than most men's. How he thanked her, not just with words but with respect. How he looked at his daughter with love so fierce it nearly broke her heart. Clara had been alone all her life, an orphan who had been passed from charity homes to teaching boards. No man had ever looked at her that way. She told herself not to dream. Ranchers didn't fall for quiet schoolteachers who spoke with their hands. Yet Luke kept returning, sometimes with a basket of apples, sometimes with fresh milk, sometimes for no reason at all. One evening, when a sudden storm broke across the plains, Clara stayed late with Emma, waiting for the rain to ease. Luke arrived soaked through, his shirt clinging to his frame, worry shadowing his face. "I was afraid you'd try to walk home in this," he said breathlessly. "The roads flood quick. You'll stay at the ranch tonight." Clara hesitated, glancing at Emma's eager smile, then at Luke's steady eyes. She nodded softly. The ranch house was warm and filled with the smell of wood smoke. Luke's motherly old housekeeper, Martha, prepared stew while Emma led Clara upstairs to a small guest room. "Papa built this house for Mama," Emma signed quietly. Clara touched her cheek gently and smiled. The child hugged her. That night, after Emma was asleep, Luke found Clara by the fireplace, drying her damp shawl. For a moment, silence wrapped around them, comfortable, deep. "She's smiling again," Luke said quietly. "It's been 2 years since I've seen her laugh like that. You did that, Miss Dawson." Clara blushed, shaking her head, signing, "She's a bright child. She just needed someone to listen." Luke studied her hands as they moved. "I wish I could learn that language like you," he murmured. She hesitated, then lifted his rough, calloused hand and guided his fingers gently through the shapes of a few signs. You can, she whispered. It's not hard. It's just, from the heart. Their eyes met. For the first time, Luke understood what Emma must feel when words weren't needed, when silence spoke louder than anything. He wanted to say more, to tell her how her presence had filled their empty home with light again, but all he could manage was, "Clara, thank you." From that night, something unspoken began between them. Luke started visiting the school more often, learning sign language in secret from Clara after the children had gone home. They would sit close, hands brushing as they practiced, their laughter soft like the evening breeze. Each small touch carried a spark neither dared name. But gossip travels fast in small towns. Soon whispers spread, about the widowed rancher and the mute teacher. Clara overheard cruel talk at the general store one morning, "He's too rich for her. She's just looking for a husband." The words stung like a knife. That evening, when Luke came to visit, she met him with tearful eyes and trembling fingers. "People are talking. I should leave Willow Creek," she signed. Luke's heart clenched. He took her hands firmly in his. "Let them talk," he said, voice steady but aching. "They don't know what you've done for my daughter, or for me. Clara, you've given us both our voices back." Tears welled in her eyes. "You don't have to say that." "I do," he insisted. "Before you, there was only silence in this house. You taught Emma to speak without sound, and you taught me to listen without words. Don't you see? You belong here, with us." Her breath caught. His rough thumb brushed her cheek. For a moment, neither moved, until Emma's laughter rang from the doorway. She was holding a drawing, 3 figures hand in hand under a big sun. She signed proudly, "It's us. My papa, me, and Miss Dawson." Clara's tears fell freely then. Luke looked at the picture, then at her. "Seems like Emma's already decided," he said softly. "All that's left is whether you'll say yes." Under the glow of the firelight, Clara nodded slowly, her lips trembling into a shy smile. "Yes," she signed, and Luke understood perfectly. Months later, the whole town gathered again, this time not to whisper but to celebrate. The shy schoolteacher walked down the aisle in a simple cream dress, her hands folded with grace, her eyes shining. Beside her stood the rancher who had once thought he'd never love again, and between them, little Emma, smiling wide, holding both their hands. As they exchanged vows, Clara didn't speak. Much, she didn't have to. When Luke signed, "I love you," in slightly clumsy, shaking hands, she laughed softly through tears and signed back, "Forever." And as the sun set behind the rolling hills of Willow Creek, the silent teacher who once lived in shadows found her voice. Not through words, but through love that spoke louder than any sound ever could.